You are a keen ally of Ed Miliband, but how do you feel about this government prioritising foreign climate aid over British pensioners?
I think they're linked. Why do I think they're linked? In the last few years, one of the things that exacerbated the cost of living crisis is the cost of bills because of our reliance on fossil fuels. And so when Putin decides to invade Ukraine, you see the massive spike and peak in oil and gas because it's international markets. The point that Ed is making, which I fully support, is us having energy security, us being self-sufficient. By the way, we're not short of wind or sun. It means that actually bills come down over a period of time. Had George Osborne and David Cameron not got rid of the green levy, inverted commas, green crap in 2012, pensioners would be paying far smaller bills, as would the rest of us, than they currently are. The point Ed and Keir are making in relation to Great British Energy is we could massively increase energy supply, be self-sufficient, and bills would come down as well. It's a win-win.
Is Nigel Farage a force for good?
No. What he does do, though, is he manages to respond to legitimate concerns people have. I think there are two types of politicians, generally speaking. The first type tries to address people's fears. You may have a fear your daughters can't get affordable housing. You may have a concern that your loved one, your wife can't get decent healthcare. You might be concerned about the inability of you to get a job commensurate with your skills. I'm going to try and address those concerns. That's the first type of politician that I hope I am. The second type of politician plays in your fears. This is the reason why your kids can't get housing is because of the European Union. The reason why your wife's having to wait for healthcare is because of the immigrant and so forth. Blaming the other is the oldest trick in the politician's handbook. I think Farage does too much of blaming the other.
You're keen for the UK to rejoin Europe, aren't you?
Yeah, it's not going to happen in the short term or the medium term, but in the long term, I think we should be having a conversation about that. But in the short to medium term, what we focus on instead is closer alignment. We've got the biggest, most successful countries trade the most with their neighbours. Whatever successful country you look at, we've got a potential market of 500 million people. It's bonkers to diverge from, trading with them, to have trading friction. So I want closer alignment. And next year, there's an opportunity because next year, the European Union and the British government will review the Brexit deal we currently have. And I'll be lobbying the British government to have closer alignment rather than more divergence.
Presumably, working with a Labour government has already been much easier?
Oh, look, I mean, I tried really hard over the last 8 years before the July the 4th general election to work with the previous government. I actually worked closely with David Cameron and George Osborne. We've had ups and downs over the last 8 years. But just the last 9 weeks, the amount of engagement, meetings, dialogue, planning has been transformative. I'm not going to pretend to Londoners this government's going to write us a blank cheque. I'm not going to pretend to Londoners this government will give us everything we want, but we're in an open, candid, honest conversation about how we can work together for the benefit of London and the rest of the country. I'll give you just one example. So I'm keen to make all our buses electric, right? We actually have now more electric buses than any city in Western Europe, which is great. Actually, these buses are made around the country, in West Yorkshire, in Ballymena, in Falkirk, in Guildford. So the point I make to the government is, look, work with us to try and get more electric buses. And by the way, you benefit the entire country because they've got the expertise to build these buses. And there are other examples, Oxford Street being another one. The government's working with us hand in glove to get Oxford Street over the line. Why? Because the government recognises not just the joys of Oxford Street if it's successful, but it brings in revenues to the Treasury.
Will you go for a fourth term?
Ask me again in 3.5 years' time.
Come on, you must know if you're going to go for it. Seriously.
No, you support the second best team in the country. You know that a good football manager, a great one, only focuses on delivery.
But presumably you want to lead the Labour Party one day.
No, I have no ambitions at all to lead the Labour Party.
Why?
Because
you'd be good at it.
Because one of my best mates is the current leader and the Prime Minister. He'll be the Prime Minister for a long time, and I look forward to working with him and supporting him.
Who would you like to see as leader of the Conservatives?
The person least likely to win the next general election, but the most likely to be an effective opposition. And I mean that genuinely.
Who is that?
So it's probably the kiss of death. The kiss of death. If I tell you, I will name a name in a minute. But let me see why I said that. I think whether you're a politician, whether you're a sports person, whether you're a newspaper, competition means you raise your game. And I think we as a Labour government will be a better government with good challenge. All right, it's really important not to be in an echo chamber. So of the four candidates who are left standing, James Cleverly, Kemi Badenoch, Robert Jenrick and Tom Dugan, I think the most effective opposition leader would be someone like Cleverly, who I think, I know James as you know, we're not best friends, but I've worked with him. He brings people together. He's somebody who was you know, served in the assembly. He's somebody who I think wouldn't play to these culture wars that one or two others are playing to. You know, but as I said to you, I want an effective opposition, but not somebody good enough to win the next general election.
Who is London's worst politician?
I'm not going to answer that because I'm only to work with them. One of the things I've learned in this job, Dylan, is, you know, when I first became mayor, I was still quite I think my personality, but also my previous job as a parliamentarian, a litigation lawyer, I'd say that's one of my weaknesses, being you know, adversarial. I've tried not to be adversarial. I've tried to be a bridge builder and reach across and work with other parties. And I worry if I, you know, said A another, I may need to work with A another going forward, and that would make it difficult.
Trump or Harris?
Harris.
How would you cope with a new Trump presidency?
Crikey. I think how would any of us cope with a new Trump presidency? Look, anybody who has studied American history and the special relationship knows the importance of America. They're the leader of the free world. You know, when, you know, America sets the tone, whether it's sending out ripples of hope or ripples of fear. I think there was a resetting of relations between US and the world when President Biden became the president, from signing up to the Paris Accords to reassuring NATO that the NATO treaty was safe, and I could go on and on. Lack of protectionism and so forth. I think, you know, another Trump presidency is quite clear from what he said publicly. He's interested in revenge. I think when I listen to J.D. Vallance, I worry about my friends who are childless and cat owners. But also I think is the politics of fear. He plays on people's fears. Sure. And so I worry. But also the other thing it does, Dylan, is it mainstreams views that are on the periphery. But we know there are some people who have got views that we find abhorrent, but on the periphery. What Trump and Farage and these characters do is they make mainstream views that, you know, shouldn't be mainstream, and that worries me.
What makes a good Londoner?
Oh, good question. I've always thought, and I talk about this a lot, something I call the London promise, which is you work hard, you get a helping hand, you can achieve anything. I think what makes a good Londoner is that work ethic, wanting to do well. Nobody comes there to sit in their bum. You want to do well. Whatever job you do, you want to give it your utmost. But also in London, I think what we do, which is really remarkable when I visit other parts of the country, other parts of the world, is we don't simply tolerate difference. We respect it, we embrace it, we celebrate it, which is very different to tolerating difference. You know, you tolerate a toothache or a backache. I don't want to be tolerated as somebody who's different, and that's a lovely joy of being a Londoner. You understand that when it comes to being a Londoner.